What was interesting, what you said about Kobe Bryant, kind of off the matter, off the topic, which I quite liked. Again, I know these names, I don't know much about them, but he mentioned that Michael Jordan would kind of, in training, kind of dominate and show everyone he's the best and be the best and whatnot. And he said that could be quite intimidating to some players, because remember, there's two sides to the coin. But then with Kobe Bryant, what he did was the first, you know, he'll lower his level a little bit just to make everyone feel a bit more comfortable and be like, oh, you know what, I'm actually on the same level to some degree. Yeah. And then he'll raise the level. And I think, like, I quite, you know, admired that. I thought that was quite cool because, you know, there's two sides to it. Some people could be, some people might be challenged, like, no, I'm not going to let him outshow me. They can raise to that game. Yeah. Where other players, and again, this goes within a business context as well, other people might be like, oh, so intimidated, like, he's so great, man, I'll never be as good as him. I'll never be as good as that person. And again, that goes to leadership. Part of it might even be maybe adapting to certain players, because different players need, and again, sport, there's a lot of sport, you know, one of the things I always like to say is there's so many analogies. Sport's a great analogy for life. Do you know what I mean? How you deal with defeat, how you deal with victory, how you deal with teammates you don't like, how you deal with adversity, X, Y, Z. So
winning, losing. Yeah.
You could be, you know, you could be winning the first 5 minutes of the game and losing the last 5 minutes. How do you deal? So many different emotions go through, whether it's a football match, 90 minutes. I don't know how long a basketball match is, but you see what I mean? So many different emotions go through that. And that goes through all sports. Yeah. So that was just quite interesting to see, okay, that was how Kobe Bryant kind of led his team.
And he said something to Kobe, I didn't write it down, but he said something to Kobe, like, I'm paraphrasing here, but something like, you know, these are your family, like, you don't want them to hate you. You want them to be on side. So don't just go out there and be a bully, or, you know, get them on board and then work together. You can still be a cleaner, but, you know, you want them to be with you. And I really like that because, you know, especially in management, there are some bosses that are, you know, driving their team for, you know, success, or what they perceive as success. You know, get results. But why is someone going to work for you if you're just cracking the whip or bullying? You know, you want them to be part of the team. I mean, this is things that I talk about in my corporate workshops. So,
but it's funny because it goes back to that feared or liked situation. So you wouldn't necessarily want. So that's a bit of a contradiction there. Do you know what I mean, from him in that sense? Because it's like he's telling Kobe, which is, I think, is the right thing. What you're saying is that, you know, you want them to kind of, you want to bring them along with you, but if they're scared of you, they're not gonna actually want to be around you or whatnot. So yeah, it's interesting, man. There's a lot of, like, with some of the chapters, I felt with this book there was a lot of, like, sayings that you know, like slogans or like phrases, or, you know, like, I think, this could be some banging, like, Instagram quotes, or you know what I mean? Like, or, like, you know what I mean, things like that, or tattoos or whatever you want. But it's like, sometimes I just felt like he went off on a bit of tangent sometimes. That didn't really have relation to the topic, to the chapter.
And I think for me, some of it felt a bit repetitive. It felt like he was saying the same thing in a different way. It did feel a bit repetitive at times. But there were lots of things that I liked and took from it. You know, like you said, nice Instagram quotes. And also, he touched on failure.
Yes.
And I like this because it was talking about other people's perception of your failure. And he defined failure, and he said, failure is what happens when you decide you failed. And, you know, until then, you're still looking for ways to get better to where you want to be. So failure is what happens when you decide you failed.
Message.
You know what I mean? Because it's like say you failed your driving test, for example.
Yeah.
Okay, that's just your first attempt. We'll go again. At some point, I'm going to pass my driving test. You know, I mean, I passed on my second time. So the first one was a learning curve. And I think that's what he's trying to instill. It's not failure, it's learning. And he said, when someone else says you failed, what they mean is, if that were me, I would feel like a failure. So don't let someone else's perception of failure rub off on you. If they were in your situation, they would feel like a failure, but doesn't mean you are. You only fail when you've decided you failed. And it had, important message and powerful messages like that, which I was like,
No, it was good. And I think as well, what I liked with that chapter especially, he talks about his own failure. that he kind of had, and again, it will failure not to get how your mindset around it, but because he opened a facility, Attack Athletics. Where was it based in? I don't know where, but basically where it was based in, I feel like it was Chicago. I could be wrong, but I feel like it might be Chicago. And the problem he had, one, there was the NBA lockout, which I think the players went on strike, basically. And then as well, wherever it was based, because normally he goes to the players. So he'll get a call from the team or from the player, and he'll go to wherever they are, and he'll just work with them there. But he set up this facility, Attack Athletics, and trying to get players to come in. And then there was a few issues. Obviously, the NBA lockout was one of the issues, and the other issue was the fact that players didn't actually want to come. That was in 2007. Didn't actually want to come to his facility. They were used to him coming to them, and I mean, well, it's down to there's two ways to look at it, but that was something that he kind of admits that was sort of like a failure in the sense that, well, that didn't work, but then he adapted it and said, okay, well, you know what, I tried, and I moved on. And then again, it goes to his cooler, closer and cleaner mindset. You know, a cooler admits defeat, like we just said. A closer works harder, and a cleaner strategizes for a different outcome. You know, so using your example of the driving test, you could have just said, "Oh man, I've failed my test, and you know, I can't do it no more." And again, but then you obviously didn't do that, and that's what no one should do. But again, when you're kind of in a position where you don't have an option to go again, you have to go again. You see what I mean? So see, whatever that situation may be, and that goes from business, that goes, you know, definitely sometimes when I'm speaking to some young people more mature, people my age, whatever it might be, it's like you have to understand that it's your decision. Like you said, when you decide to stop, then you've actually failed, you know? Yeah. They say like with investing, you don't lose until you take the money out. So say like you invest in something and the money goes way down, you haven't made a loss until you take out the money. So and you haven't made a profit until you take out the money as well. But you keep, you keep going. So I think it definitely goes down to your kind of mindset and recognizing what you can do to stay in the game. How can you adapt? You know, all this stuff. Like you said, I mean, the message is quite simple. Yeah. You know, and I think maybe that's why it felt maybe a bit repetitive at times, because it's just about keep going. Yeah. You know, keep going, pushing harder, adapting. You know, and again, I liked, because certain circumstances I feel like, okay, maybe I was a cooler in that circumstance. Yeah. Wherever that might be looking historically. So if I get the opportunity to be in that position again, I'm not going to be the cooler, I'm going to be the cleaner. Yeah. And whatnot. So that was just a snippet. To watch the full episode, click here and don't forget to subscribe.